Hello, happy Wednesday. It's another video for a successful transition from monogamy to open. And this week we're talking about the big four negative emotions that can affect people's success when making the change from monogamy to open. I mean, it affects our success in many areas of our lives, but particularly when we're trying to make changes that people can see as different. So today we're going to talk about guilt. And guilt, like shame, is that sense of having done something wrong, and is often kind of considered shame's close cousin because they're similar in that way of that feeling of having done something wrong. But guilt is usually more associated with that you actually have done something wrong. And there's a lot of controversy about whether or not guilt has any positive aspects to it. When you talk to different therapists and theorists in the field of mental health, there's different views of thought about whether or not guilt can have any positive. Now, clearly, guilt has far more negatives than it has positives, and we'll talk about that in a minute here. But some people think that guilt can actually have some positive benefits to it. And their way of thinking is that it can help people to actually make changes in behavior if they're doing things wrong. So for example, if you go out one night and you drink way too much, and the next day you're like, oh, wow, I drank way too much. Yeah, way too much alcohol. I really need to make a change, and I feel bad, and I do better. For some people, that can help them, that feeling of guilt can help them to make some changes and not drink as much. Or if you tend to overeat, it's that thought of, oh, I really need to stop this. I need to get better about my eating habits. And they can make some positive changes. Or whether you make breaches of commitments to others. So if you made plans to go out with your best friend and then you blow them off because you want to stay home and binge watch Netflix, rather than giving them a good reason as to why you're breaking your date, and your get together with them, you can feel bad about it and say, I need to keep my promises to my friends. If I say I'm going to go out, I need to go out. The problem is that what other researchers find is that often is not the case. While some people might improve their behavior from the guilt they feel about making those little mistakes and those things they did wrong, most people, and if we take our same examples, most people who, if they drank too much the night before and they feel bad about it, what do? Well, they go out and get drunk again. And if somebody feels bad about eating too much and they're like, oh, I hate so much, what do? They sit at home and they eat more. And the person who breaks their promise to their friend, instead of being better about keeping their promises to their friend, instead now when their friend texts them, they avoid their messages, they avoid their phone calls, they start ghosting the person instead. And so it makes it worse. And so the guilt doesn't necessarily improve behavior. And that guilt is a very pervasive thing. There are studies that show that adults spend 39 minutes a day feeling guilty. And normally it's little things that in the scheme of life are not things you really need to be feeling guilty about. It's not like they're feeling guilty that they scammed money from some old couple who's now going to be destitute. They're feeling guilty about tiny little slights, tiny little things that really are not that important. And so more guilt does not necessarily help improve behavior. So in many ways, some of the theorists are right that guilt is worse than useless. And especially when it comes to sexuality and sexuality that's deemed as different, guilt can be very much a problem. People feel very guilty about their sexuality and things they like and things they don't like. And when you're trying to make changes like what we're talking about here, there can be a lot of guilt involved. If one of the people in a relationship really wants to start exploring an open relationship, and the other one is maybe a little bit more hesitant and not so sure about it, the one for whom it's very important may feel a lot of guilt about, why is this so important to me? Why do I need this? What's wrong with me that I need this? And there's a lot of guilt that they feel. The person who's maybe struggling with, do I really want to do this? And they tend to start feeling a lot of guilt of, oh, I must not be pleasing my partner enough because they want this. I seem pretty content, but they want more. What's wrong with me? Oh, I must be doing something wrong. And then they start feeling guilty. So there's a lot of problems with this in that it goes round and round, and doesn't really help with the situation. So that's guilt, and we'll talk about it more as we kind of wrap all this up. Tomorrow we're going to talk about embarrassment, and then Friday we're going to talk more about ways you can work on managing these emotions, on building your emotional intelligence, and we will talk about more of that on Friday. Until then, feel free to join the private Facebook group, A Successful Transition from Monogamy to Open. We'd love to have more of you. It's grown quite a bit already just in the last few weeks, and having some great conversations there. So if you're at all interested, please feel free to join. We look forward to that, and I will see you all tomorrow. Thanks so much. Bye.